Middle class, working class Americans are getting kicked in the proverbial knees.
Yeah, it's really sad. And also, so do you think, if you had to guess, does America ever get this under control? Or are we sort of like in, the Nero times of the Roman Empire? Like, are we in, whether it takes 10 years, 50 years, 200 more years, is it inevitable that we don't?
You don't have that much time. So we're seeing this debt to GDP spiral, right? If we took CBO's own estimates, which are always wildly conservative, in 20 years you get to 250% debt to GDP. That doesn't work.
Yeah,
and so the next Secretary of Treasury will have the most important stint as Secretary of Treasury in my lifetime.
Almost, and regardless of which party, too.
Regardless of what party. Yeah. Because he has to get this debt deficit problem under control, or we will have a runaway.
I mean, it basically leads to hyperinflation or
and I say all the time, I go to bed and pray Bitcoin doesn't. I don't wake up with Bitcoin at $1 million, because that would mean we've ended civil society.
Yes, slow and steady, not a.
We want slow and steady. We want adoption and more people around the world. And there's always going to be governments. We saw it with Nigeria. We saw it with Turkey. That are unbelievably irresponsible with their monetary policy and their fiscal policy. Right. It's populism. I want to get reelected.
Yeah.
Give everyone a free toothbrush.
The speaker discusses the economic challenges facing middle and working class Americans, the rising national debt, and the potential consequences of unchecked debt growth, including hyperinflation. They also touch on the political landscape, noting that cryptocurrency adoption should be bipartisan, and that both parties have advocated for the space. The conversation shifts to Japan's unique economic situation, including its high debt-to-GDP ratio, low birth rate, and large savings rate, which has allowed it to maintain low interest rates and a stable economy despite its high debt levels. The speaker also mentions the impact of interest rate differentials on currency values and the potential for Japan to sell U.S. treasuries to defend the yen.
The thing about Trump, which is so complicated, forget that his personal ethics drive 50% of the country insane, and that creates division. But more complicated than that is he doesn't really stand for a lot. And so he might be saying, we're going to deport 20 million immigrants. He's not going to deport 20 million immigrants. I will bet my life. Literally, you can chop my head off. But will he deport 2 million immigrants? Maybe. But let's assume he does. What does that do? It drives inflation up, right? I was just talking to one of the world's best investors. He's like, I'm worried if Trump wins, inflation is going to go high because of the immigrant thing. We're going to have no labor. And so,
what do you think about him on crypto in that spot? Because he recently came out.
He's smart as can be.
Right.
On the day that Joe Biden said, I'll veto SAB 121, I would bet you dime to donuts Joe Biden doesn't know what SAB 121 is.
Yeah.
Most people don't. It's an arcane.
Well, that's what I mean. It's kind of minutia.
It's an arcane accounting rule that the SEC jammed in that actually hurts the big banks who want to be in custody,
right?
More than it hurts the crypto companies. And Biden says he's going to veto it, and Trump, with Ryan Selkis along his side, says, "I'm your crypto guy."
Yeah.
He wasn't a great crypto president when he was president.
No, he said he didn't like it.
But now he realizes if we're going to turn this into Democrats hate crypto, then Republicans must like it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we need both sides.
Yeah.
I go to D.C. more than I'd like to. And, you call it Richie Torres and Ro Khanna and even Hakeem Jeffries, who's neutral, who've gotten more neutral to positive. Like, we've got advocates on the Democrat side. Jake Auchincloss up in Massachusetts.
Wiley Nickel in North Carolina.
And plenty on the Republican side. It's been Elizabeth Warren and a few people around her that what people don't understand about Washington is if you're a senator, there's bills on everything you've got to have an opinion on.
Yeah, it's true.
And so Senator Warren wields an unbelievable amount of power around our space right now because she's loud. She cares a lot about this.
She chooses to care a lot, yeah.
For reasons I don't understand. Right? Crypto should be bipartisan. It is in some ways libertarian, right? Freedom.
Sure.
It resonates with the libertarian side of Republicans. And it's some ways very progressive. Let's cut out the middleman.
Right. And also like no redlining. It doesn't care who you are. Everyone can have access.
And so,
it's totally very egalitarian in that sense.
We will get through this as a country. We will get through this if you're a Democrat as a party. But right now, Trump is, he's a great politician, like him or not. And he sees this. And it's almost becoming a purity test. I said this on our earnings call. Like SAB 121, this vote's going to be really big.
Yeah.
If the Democrats vote to repeal it, and just so your audience knows what SAB 121 is, it's an accounting rule that says if you custody Bitcoin or crypto digital assets in your custody, you've got to put them on your balance sheet.
Right, for public companies,
For
of
public
which
companies.
basically all banks are.
Right.
But then
so
because
if you're Bank
separate,
of New York and you want to be a custodian, it blows your balance sheet up, even
Right.
though it doesn't really blow
and they
it
have
up.
capital requirements separately for banks. So
Worse for the banks than it is for the crypto companies.
totally, it keeps the
But-
banks out.
Yeah. And so it makes no sense.
It's literally ridiculous.
But-
it makes no sense.
I don't like crypto. I'm a Democrat. It's almost like saying I don't like dogs. There's 65 million Americans that own a dog.
Really,
65 million Americans own a dog, right? We have 340 million Americans.
it's pretty good.
Pretty nice ratio.
I think that's more than own crypto.
My family owns 4, all small ones. Actually, we have one big one. 85 to 90 million Americans now own crypto.
Oh, wow.
I thought it was lower. I Googled it.
I thought it was about 50, but
I
yeah.
double-checked
It doesn't
yesterday.
surprise me, especially
I
with ETFs
double-checked
now,
before I
too.
got on the earnings call.
Let's go.
And so, yeah, because the ETF, like,
Yeah.
you've got more and more people owning crypto.
Right.
Now, of that 80 million Americans, or let's say 55, let's make it the same as dogs.
Yeah.
Not all are single-issue voters. Quite frankly, very few are. But if it's 15%, all the Bitcoin maximalists are single-issue voters. I mean, there are a lot of single-issue crypto voters. That's 10 million voters, mostly young.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, Democrats? Don't be idiots.
Well, right. At least don't have this like antagonistic. You don't have to be the big supporters or anything, but like to define their policy on it as anti.
It's an own goal. I'm going to get on the phone with some influential Democrats I know and be
Good,
like,
tell
dudes,
them.
don't make this mistake. But, you know,
It's just a strange one because it's also like
my influence,
Yeah, I
my
get
influence
it.
in 2 nickels is usually worth a dime.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about crypto markets. Actually, can I ask you more about macro? Because I wanted to ask, BIMNet was explaining to our audience a little bit about this over the last couple of weeks. What is the deal with Japan? I've never really understood, how do they have this high of a debt to GDP ratio? Why have they been keeping rates? Like, are they trapped? Can you explain this? Because I know it plays into Yellen's meeting with them.
You
There's
know,
a
Japan
fear
is-
they might sell our treasuries to defend the
So
yen.
Japan has a few things
What's the
happening.
deal there?
They have a declining population. Japan is a insular country. When you live in Japan, which I did, you're an anthropologist. They're unbelievably polite and nice to you, but you're never really taken inside. I moved to Hong Kong, and you're a citizen.
Yeah.
Like the next day,
You're ready to hang out.
And so they're not pro-immigrant, right? They're weary of immigrants. They want to preserve their culture, and they have no birth rate. And so you're losing Japanese at a rapid pace. They are the largest savers in the world and the oldest people in the world. Old people don't spend that much money.
Right.
And so there's a huge savings. And so they run this giant deficit, but they have an equal amount of savings. And so it's this weird accounting. We finally, after deflation for since 89, whatever, 30-odd years, 35 years, they've got inflation going. And that's allowing some vibrancy in their economy. The economy is doing fine. And, you know, the yen is going higher because until they raise rates, and why should they raise rates? They only now got inflation after 30 years trying to get inflation. They got just a tiny bit of inflation. They're going to let inflation go for a while.
They want it, right, for their debt? Like, it could be good for them.
And actually to get nominal GDP going in their economy.
Yeah.
Why is dollar yen going up every day? U.S. rates are 5 and Japanese rates are 0,
Yeah.
are negative. And so even if they raised them a teeny bit, it's still a huge gap.
Right.
And so currencies over the long haul go on interest rate differential.
The speaker discusses the U.S. national debt, economic challenges, and cryptocurrency adoption, emphasizing the need for sustainable solutions and bipartisan support. They also explain Japan's unique economic situation, highlighting their high debt-to-GDP ratio, low birth rate, and large savings rate, which has maintained their economic stability. Thank you for watching the video and subscribe the channel and press the bell icon.